Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. I'm hoping I hit my cue there. We have a little issue there on the network. So this is September 6th of 2014, and oh my God, there is so much going on out in the world today that if you're trying to take stock of all of it, your head's going to spin. So, oh man. Ramon, how was your night? We just had a show this morning, and Ramon had a short sleep period there. Any good dreams, Ramon?
I'm still drinking coffee. No, not really. None at all that I can remember. Too sure of sleep.
Yeah,
so wild.
What time is it there right now, Ramon?
It's 9:01
p.m.
a.m.
A.M. Okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's bright and early. Ramon doesn't quite wake up with the crack of dawn, but he does go to bed normally at the crack of dawn.
Not when you go to sleep at 3 a.m. to wake up at 8.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Life's tough, Ramon. So,
I bet you can't do that, Tom, so don't even.
What? All right. So,
anyway.
I want to welcome everybody to the show, and a big shout out to all the guys out there in the chat rooms and all across the planet that are tuning in, listening live. I want to make sure you guys know that we do have phone lines open, and we will have them open through the whole show tonight. So if you guys catch a spot and something interesting that you feel compelled to call in and share your comment or ask a question, by all means, please do so. So we have a really special treat for you tonight. We have three amazing researchers and that are, getting their voice out there and doing what they can, doing their part to help open eyes on this planet on what the hell is really going on. Yeah, as you guys all know, that there's things that aren't quite above the table on this planet and the way things are operating, and we are starting to become aware. In mass, we are starting to become aware that some of this stuff just doesn't pass the sniff test. So, we have with us tonight Crystal Clark, James Horak, and Mhairead McDonald. And Mhairead, if I slaughter your name, please just smack me upside the head or something. Mhairead, you're in Ireland, correct?
No, I'm in Scotland.
Scotland. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to. No offense intended.
What was that, James?
I said that was very bad.
That's why I had to backpedal and say no offense intended. So
that's okay. I'm taken. Don't worry.
Okay. So, which I will be really interested to hear your perspective on some of these issues from over there in Europe. It's I know that the way people view what's going on there may be tainted, or not necessarily tainted, but influenced by the cultural systems over there. Before we get rolling too much, I'm sure most of our listeners are pretty familiar with James and Crystal Clark. But you, Mhairead, would you please give us a quick rundown on who you are and what brought you here?
Well, that's a hard one to sort of. Basically, I got in touch with Crystal about a year and a half or maybe 2 years ago, and through her got to know James, and I've just been kind of supporting their research and work. And Crystal persuaded me to stand in for her to do a show once, and because I love her dearly, I said yes. And and I set up a round table for Fukushima round table, and really that's what I've been focusing on, among other things, but that's been my main kind of.
She got the three most prominent leaders in the anti-nuke movement on our show with her charming self.
Yeah. So yes, that's part of it. But I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, I just basically want to get the truth out there as best as I possibly can, and cut through the BS. Pardon the expression.
Exactly. So let's start there with Fukushima. You know, this happened, Jesus, we're coming up on 4 years now, right?
4 years in March, yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean, this thing's been going on for a long time, and from the limited amount of information that we do get from the media doesn't tell us crap, but the limited amount that we're able to gather and garner from the alternative medias and doing our own legwork, so to say, to find out what the hell's going on there. It just doesn't appear to me like they're making any headway in their supposed attempt to cap this thing off and stop what's going on. Mhairead, are you getting the same impression there?
Oh, yeah. It was impossible for them to do anything from more or less the day it happened. And I'm sure James will agree with me that they couldn't have done what they did at Chernobyl there. They maybe had a time limit, but the explosion that happened at Reactor 3 in particular was extreme. And they lied. They said it was hydrogen. They said this, that, and the next thing. They don't tell people that within that there was plutonium within that. So it's actually worse than a bomb. It's mock steel they talk about, and that's plutonium. So that in itself raised a lot of alarm bells. There's people who were monitoring it. Anti-nuclear people were monitoring it at that time, and that's why Kevin Blanche was one of the people I wanted to get on the round table, because I myself, I missed that. I didn't miss it, but I just missed the ball at that time. There was too much distracting my attention. And he made a video the day after and basically just ranted at everyone, because he's been an anti-nuclear activist for a long, long time. He knows the subject matter really, really well. So, and we know that they're dumping, I don't know how many tons of radiated water into the Pacific, and have been for the last 3 years. They're finally admitting that now. There's news sources that you could go to. I can give you the links for your show, for your listeners later on, that I would recommend. I would also recommend Fukushima Diary. There are sources that you can find, but you have to be very careful, because the actual industry itself does not want a lot of it to come out. They're managing things. They're even managing the webcam. I posted a story tonight about a woman who was watching the webcam, and she was watching birds fly over the reactor area, and she'd heard stories that the birds would fly within that sphere, within the plant itself, and fall down dead. And someone had witnessed this, and she was watching these crows flying, and she was waiting for that. She was thinking, okay, something might happen. And then they started to fly backwards. She caught them. Literally rewinding the webcam, yeah. So. Oh,
really?
So the feed from the webcam you cannot rely on. I just saw that story tonight, so that's like, every single day I'm monitoring stuff, and I'm just kind of, blown away. I'm just blown away by the level of lies and manipulation.
What's surprising for me is that when they finally came out, the major newspapers and NHK finally came out and was saying that there's a huge leakage. Let me just call him the asshole we have as I'm sorry, I meant to say Prime Minister. Said
I don't blame you.
because I live in Japan.
I know.
For those of you who don't know.
Ramon, do not get into trouble.
Yeah, be careful what you say.
Yeah, 10 years in jail.
We'll say it for you.
Yeah. Anyway, continue, sorry.
That's okay, because I know James can break me out of jail. But what they were saying was that let's if you want us to deal with that, then we can't have the Olympic. So what's shocking to me is that no one is reacting or even talking about it here. And when I'm saying nobody, I'm talking about the average Joe Smo or Yoshi Smo. I don't know. But the average person is not talking about it. And once in a while I'll mention it to my students and I just get the deer in the headlights kind of thing, which is amazing in itself. Because I think it takes so much effort to really ignore the 8,000-pound gorilla smacking you across the face. It's not even in the room. It's literally hitting you now. So. Anyway, please continue on.
Well, I mean, we also know that there's a press lockdown of a kind there. I mean, I don't know how Fukushima Diary manages to work to get his information onto his blog. I know he's warned people in the past that, you know, if he doesn't write for a while, then we're to, you know, raise hell so that, you know, we can find out if he's okay. I know that Kevin has people there connecting with him. He's in Utah and he has contacts because he's been when you're an activist over a long period of time, obviously you build up contacts here, there and everywhere, particularly in Japan where Fukushima itself was one of the biggest, I believe, reactors on the planet. I mean, it's not the biggest, but one of that batch that they made in late 60s, early 70s. I think it was designed and built. I'm not sure. So, you know, as for the culture, the people of Japan, I think that, I don't know, I wouldn't like to speculate because I'm not there, but you're obviously dealing with maybe a younger batch who the fear will be there, and obviously what happened after World War II and so on. It's just accumulated within their psyche.
Yeah, and that's what blows me away so much about their apathy there in Japan, is they have recent history of nuclear catastrophe.
There are protests happening, according to Kevin, and we've seen them. There are protests against
There are happening, but it's a small number of people, and you have people like the water guy, Dr. Imoto.
Yes,
Dr. Imoto, he's been really, you know, working on that, and he's testing the water, and, you know, he's really out there. So there is a few people. It's not like everybody's just got their hands crossed. But, you know, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the, you know, what we would call the sheeple. There's not a peep coming out of them. You know, most of them there's this saying that goes, shoganai, and that means nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, we had another guy on that round table. His name's Andrew Ibisu. He lives in Australia, but he was raised in Japan, but I think his heritage is Vietnamese or somewhere. He's got one of these amazing kind of cultural backgrounds. Really, really lovely guy. And we talked to him a lot about that kind of, it's almost like they have to bear this problem and say nothing about it. And that contributes to it as well. But, you know, the same thing is happening in America and in the UK. I'm talking to people about it here and they're like, oh, I thought they fixed that. You know, there's a big hole in my living room wall that shapes, you know, fits my head. That's where I go and bang my head every day because it's like, what can you do? There's only so much you can do. My goal is to kind of support the people who are really getting the information out as best as I possibly can. And if we can, you know, come together with other people and discuss it, then at least I've contributed one small thing to that, one small part of that. But it is frighteningly serious. It really, really is. You know, we're dealing with something that is, I think, probably the greatest environmental catastrophe happening right now on the planet.
Yeah, it's also culturally not good to be an alarmist, I think, anywhere on the planet, but especially here. Don't start any trouble, please. We don't want any trouble.
Yeah.
And really, that's so, you know, even though I'm inside, I might be upset. Culturally, I shouldn't say anything because then people look at me funny. Good thing that people look at me funny anyway here. So.
Yeah, that's a strange thing about your culture over there, Ramon, is these suffer in silence. It's beyond don't rock the boat, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, and again, I'm talking about the population, not everybody, because you got people who say, you know, they don't care and they're out there protesting, and every Friday they're in front of the city hall and they're protesting, and they've been, you know, out there since the beginning. So, you know, you got your hardcore people who are trying and trying to get stuff out there, and few journalists, but, you know, that law that came out, you know, 10 years in jail really scared a lot of people.
Well, yes, and just before we came on, I looked at Fukushima Diary because there was a story that was released the other day about a television director who was to make a film about the children with thyroid cancer in Japan. This is a Japanese director, and I'm sorry, I don't have his name in front of me, and I probably could pronounce it anyway, but I can send you the link about that and the TV company he was working with. Anyway, he committed suicide, and his friend said there's no way that that was suicide. And the headline I'm looking at now is deceased TV director apparently said, "If I die, please suspect murder." It's unconfirmed information, so,
So he was suicided.
Yeah.
That is a phrase that is just appropriate to the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that have gone out that way here. I mean, people within this community, the alternative media communities, or, filmmakers and authors and researchers and scientists, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost two good friends that were very instrumental in the alternative media. David Corso, Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole thing with suicide here, that's easy to cover up too. If someone is suicided, it's so easy to cover up because
CIA has made an art of it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but it's so many people commit suicide here normally.
What's the name of there's a forest, isn't there, Ramon? I can't remember
near
the name
Mount
of it.
Fuji. I forgot.
Yeah.
There's a few famous places for it. And, we're coming into suicide season in November or December. So
They have suicide seasons in Japan?
They do too in America.
Oh.
Yeah, like there was one year, I think I was telling you, Tom, I think it was 2011 or 2010, between November and December, the trains were consistently having problems because someone just, consistently jumping in the train. And
all right. Yeah, I remember you telling me that about the train.
Yeah, not to get off topic, but they choose certain lines because the family is sued afterwards. So they choose certain lines that are cheaper.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
So, James and/or Crystal, get your insights on what's going on over there at Fukushima. I just don't quite understand how, if this is all an intentional event. I don't know. In my world, you don't pee in your own post toasties. It just doesn't make sense to me that with all the crap that's going on this planet environmentally, it just doesn't compute. It does not compute that they would do this to a world that they live upon.
That's right. I was able to speak with you guys for a couple of hours this morning, and we did cover a little bit. I know that James has a lot of information to share, so I'm going to hand it over to him.
There are basics that are not discussed, and people were more aware of those basics in the late 60s and early 70s than they are now. One of them is the China syndrome, which has not come into the conversation or discussion in the media whatsoever. It's ignored entirely what has happened to those cores. And if you use basic physics, it will tell you that they are long gone. And where are they now? You're familiar with the tunnel machines, aren't you?
Right.
That use a nuclear reactor to superheat a tip. They can go as fast through rock as you can walk. So how far do you imagine those cores have gone?
Right. Well, how far could I walk in 3 years?
They've hit the mantle. 3 of them have hit the mantle, and the others are on the way. They've gathered mass. And, of course, they know this because they have instruments to be able to determine what I'm saying. So I'm not speaking about something that the monsters don't already know about. But what happens when they hit the mantle? What does it affect? You have Yellowstone about to blow. You have volcanoes around the world that have massive calderones. These are phenomena that can change the world in minutes, literally. So do you think that it's a coincidence that they're going off and that there are fissures opening up all over the world? You think that's a coincidence and not connected with Fukushima?
Yeah, Crystal mentioned those this morning, and And to be honest, I have not heard or seen anything about these steep fissures that she mentioned. Have you got something that you can refer us to? Is there anything out there on these yet?
Crystal has some links.
Sure, I'll pop some links in here while you guys continue the dialogue so I don't interrupt.
Oh, that'd be great. I will share those on the show page here on the Truth Frequency Radio Network for all of you listening and listening in the archives, etc.
The ugliest part of this is you've killed the Pacific Ocean. It can't be redeemed. The only people that have the technology to redeem it are not of this earth.
Right.
You've killed it. There's no longer any safety in eating any produce from it, and pretty soon there won't even be produce.
Right, right. Yeah, I've been, ever since that event happened in the first place, I've been a little bit hesitant about eating seafood myself. Especially that we do have some watchdogs here in the States that are actually, checking a lot of the seafood produce is coming in for radiation. And some of the reports that I've seen have been pretty shocking. That
isotopes of cesium are showing up in groundwater in California right now.
In groundwater, onshore groundwater?
In groundwater, yes. And what was interesting to me is just a year and a half ago, they admitted to detecting tritium offshore Fukushima. What that indicates is that the cores had left containment. Of course, those cores left containment 3 years ago. And are on their way over 3 years ago.
Tritium?
Tritium, yeah.
Tritium, yep.
Meltdown has hit a degree in temperature that it self-facilitates.
Ah, okay. And this has been detected where again? I'm sorry.
Offshore Fukushima, in the water.
Okay. Oh, that's
so they just admitted that a year and a half ago, and of course, I'm telling you that those cores left containment over 3 years ago.
Right.
What they keep telling people, I'm pretty sure they said something about China syndrome, or maybe Kevin did, I don't know. There's been so much that I've tried to take in over the last year and a half. But what they do keep telling people is that, well, in the last couple of months, is that everything kind of went up and out, so to speak, of the reactors. They'll say, oh, there was black stuff found here and black stuff found there, and that must be the corium, which is from the cores, and of course that's nonsense. So there's all this kind of crazy damage control that they do, if you pardon the pun. They cover up and then they backpedal. There's the FOIA documents, the Freedom of Information documents, are there to see online if you want to see them. But you have to trawl through all the redacted stuff.
Right.
And there's more kind of patient people than me doing that. There's a guy called Shane Russell on Facebook that I follow and talk with from time to time. I mean, there's some incredible activists that have just, in their spare time, these people are already got jobs and enough worries, but they have just done so much incredible work.
Yeah.
Because they're desperate to get information out to people to warn people. But I wanted to point out about the plume and the jet stream and how fast that carried everything over, particularly the west coast of America.
Right.
That area too, so all of this has to factor in. And I mean, it'll eventually go right around the entire planet, but, you were saying that there was people monitoring it in the States, and
right.
That's a good thing, and it will, you're really dependent on independent researchers doing that, because it can be damn sure that the officials aren't doing it, and they'll be playing it down, so that's another part of it. We've talked among ourselves about the possibility of one day going into a supermarket and everybody's got a Geiger counter, and it's not so far off when you really think about it.
We'll run out of food before that happens.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to part of my original question there about peeing in your own post-toasties. It just doesn't make sense to me that these groups would be doing this.
Tom, before we go into that, I wanted to find out, because I'm not sure, and I'm sure some of our audience is not sure what the China syndrome is exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. James?
The China syndrome is that the cores will continue to travel through the Earth indefinitely.
How do they travel through the earth? Just melting like that drill does?
Heat.
Superheated.
And they gather mass as they go. After a certain temperature, it is self-facilitating.
And did the Chinese come up with this originally?
No.
China syndrome?
That is derived from the euphemism that this will go all the way from whatever reactor it starts all the way through the earth to China. That's where the expression originated, on the basis that there will be nothing to stop it. But that's not true. The mantle will stop it. But when it hits the mantle is the source of all the magma. And of course, there's going to be a reaction. It's going to be a driving force behind massive volcano disturbances, earthquakes. And right now that is cushioned a little bit, but it won't be indefinitely. And when it happens, when it begins, you're going to see the earth as it was 250,000 years ago.
Well, I was kind of asking this question about, why would somebody, cut off the tree limb that they're standing on type thing?
Tom, why would they even talk or discuss about a policy leading to World War III?
True.
Because madmen are making these policy decisions. Madmen.
Right. Well, there's a bigger picture here that leans towards that centers around our spirituality, our true core being and of who and what we are and the purpose of being on this planet in the first place. I'm just trying to marry or tie all of the crap that's going on this planet into what I am perceiving as, at least my own personal spiritual path and ultimately the growth of my soul here on this planet, and how this all ties in with the way things are unfolding here on Earth. Any of you care to speak towards that? That's a big one, I know.
There's nothing spiritual about the monsters in charge. They have made a false god, and they've set themselves above even their false god. I mean, what kind of arrogance is associated with, we're going to find the God particle? That's very amusing.
Right. Well, I understand, that part of it, there's that, the whole, mind altering psyop crap that's going on here. And I understand that they like to throw these words out that we've associated with other things and taint them in their direction.
But we have given these people, our creatures, the power over us to decide our fate.
Yeah.
And this is how they're doing it.
Right.
Right now, World War III is on the table with the current regime in Washington, D.C.
Right. Well, it's been on the table for a long time, from what I understand.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a feature of that. I think World War III began with Fukushima.
That's an interesting thought. Well, I'd kind of like to try to understand what your guys' perspectives are on the spiritual path of humanity on planet Earth, in the midst of all of this stuff. Because people are still growing regardless and despite everything that's going on out there. They are still, developing themselves and getting closer to, the true essence of who and what we are. And, it just doesn't make sense, or it doesn't, I don't really quite comprehend the need within, this universe to go this route. And it's short of, a lack of or truly no real grand plan in place, which, that I would have a hard time swallowing, but, there's a question for you. Do you guys feel that there is a plan in place for life within this cosmos, universe, etc.?
You have self-determination. You have choice. And you haven't done very much with it. And now, what this spiritual reality you speak of, without a moral core, without the moral outrage to have changed things before they got this far, well, you have bought your own fate, haven't you? There is an immortal soul. It's not the end of anyone, but it's going to be the end of you on this planet if you don't change things, and soon. You need to change the leadership that is making these policy decisions that are so destructive and foreboding to any existence in the near future.
Yeah, I think every time we've actually got anybody into office that was, worth 2 cents as far as, actually standing up for the people and standing up for what is right, that their terms were cut short.
You have to protect them. You have to protect the valiant.
Yeah.
And unless you're awake, you can't do that, can you? How many people were awake at the time that Kennedy was assassinated? Very, very few. Very, very, not enough to protect him.
Right.
When he made those speeches before he was killed, there should have been a lot of people on alert. But it was the Secret Service that killed him.
Right. His own supposed protection.
Yeah.
That's so funny. It's so funny, James. I brought up Kennedy this morning, too. Isn't that interesting? So much changed when that happened, and still people didn't catch on. And I think, I love you guys, and I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, but I don't want to hear the word spiritual anymore, because it's a massive chasm, and the planet that we live on is a reflection of it. It doesn't mean anything if people don't actually do something with the knowledge that they have. And what good is spirituality without morality? What good is it? What good is it to know that all of these things have to be done to save the entire human race and still not do it? Edgar Cayce once tried to explain that from his perception, that to know good and not do it was the true nature of sin, and I think that's absolutely right, if we have to give it a definition. And to this day, you will be hard-pressed to even find a pastor on this planet who can wrap their brain around that. And they consider themselves spiritual people. We are deluded. We are a deluded race of people that are self-destructing and can't admit it.
I guess what I'm trying to get is, is it a exercise in futility to try to do anything with what we have here right now?
There comes a point where you have nothing left to lose, and you act. And you act with bravery, determination, and you don't stop until you've changed the things that are causing us to suffer what we are. But we have nothing left to lose.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm looking at the apathy that I see just right here in the United States, and Crystal and I spoke about this morning. It's a plague. There's just no fire within the masses to speak up, to say no. I mean, I thought when Snowden came out, when all that stuff was exposed about the wiretapping, it's not something that, is taking people's lives and stuff like that right away, that most people their sensitivities are going to be immediately in uproar, but it's still, that's huge, and there should have been a massive outrage and demand from the population to say no. Hey, check, stop. This is wrong. But it was so small and so scattered and so disorganized that I didn't hardly see anything at all about people protesting about that.
You wouldn't see any reaction to any extent reported honestly on the media, and that people are still sucking on the glass teat. Aren't they? I talk about what it would take for people to come to the sudden realization and reprocess all their designs in the comfort zone. And that is to go hungry in America for 2 days. They would change because they know that the United States has been the breadbasket of the world off and on over the years. We, even during the Cold War, provided the Soviet Union with wheat.
Right.
So all of a sudden, people going hungry in the United States, that would wake them up. And of course, this is an anticipation that the powers that be, the regime, fears most. That's why all this police militarization of the police, using the National Guard against posse comitatus, against everything that this country has built any freedom on. And it's disappearing. If people were aware that these considerations were being made by emergency acts that get signed every day by a tyrant in the White House, and a ridiculous one at that, if they knew that and knew what was in store for them when they do start showing resistance, when they do start raising up, they would act now.
Right.
But they don't. And you have to understand that once the antitrust laws were no longer enforced, and they were the law of the land that allowed fewer and fewer people to take over more and more of the media. And these people all have the same agenda, the New World Order, depopulation. They have stated it.
Right.
Ed Turner, who is one of them, is very fond of discussing depopulation. Bill Gates, of course, although that's a different sector. But it's all the same. These people will not stop until they have the power of life and death over everyone. They want a return of absolutism in the name of a corporate police state.
You know, James, what I've been finding too when it comes to like TV programs, there's several TV programs now that it's like after some kind of apocalypse, either a huge alien attack or someone comes up with a device that can turn off all the electricity, or I forgot what's the other one where society kind of breaks down as well.
Nuclear apocalypse too.
Yeah, there's the TV show called The 100 that's like that as well.
It's all preparing people for these events that will be world-shaping, and to blame someone else other than the monsters that are planning it.
Yeah.
We'll blame E.T. You know, the hostile alien thesis is one thing that Crystal and I and Mhairead have all worked to renounce, to show that this is the final step in the implementation of the New World Order that has been planned back as early as the late 60s and was in the report from Iron Mountain, the original one, not the one that's been rehashed and is published now under a phony authorship. But all of this, when Dr. Werner von Braun intimated to Carol Rosin that would happen, that the hostile alien thesis would be the final step in implementing the New World Order, he, more than anyone else, would know, wouldn't he?
Let's not forget he's part of the original paperclip crew that came over from Germany.
Oh, yes, but he had some sanity. In spite of the fact of him being SS, in spite of the fact of him being more the creator of the V-2 rocket than anyone else, von Braun had some common sense and the human decency that the people that are making the decisions that I don't have. There is a morally devoid group of people today that have deluded themselves with a false sense of values, and we're seeing the repercussions of that today because they have too much power. Right. They have a limitless power. They are responsible for the suiciding of all these people we've been talking about, some of them close friends. Psychotronics, broadcast mind control, many of the features that have developed with the cell phone industry today, all of these things contribute to keeping these people dumbed down, along with what's in the chemtrails, and it could be anything from one day to the next. Right. This is a delivery system. Back in 2007, a movie was made which dealt with the binary weapons potential of chemtrails. And it was made in Hollywood and had Hollywood stars in it. It's called Toxic Skies, and it was banned in the United States.
Right. Yeah, it's actually quite an interesting movie, too.
Yeah,
I would urge anybody out there who hasn't seen it to do some digging and find it. It is on Netflix, surprisingly.
It has Anne Height in it and a couple of other great supporting actors. She does very good with her role.
Yeah.
So land of the free where they can ban stuff and people don't even know that it's been banned. Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, this goes way back. There were 3 of Charlie Chaplin's movies that were banned in the United States. I happened to be in a place where they were first shown in the United States, Antioch College. Little town in Antioch.
Did you know The Wizard of Oz, the book, when it came out as well?
Well, you know, if you ever get a chance to see Zardoz.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. That's an excellent show.
Well, do you remember where the name Zardoz came from?
No, actually.
Well, when he is chasing the magician through an old library, there's a book out of place, and he stumbles across it, and it's The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Zardoz.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so with all the stuff that's going on, and, you know, I'm pointing this towards the masses, towards 99%, the ones that are walking around in their apathetic stupor. If there were, you know, just a couple of these issues that you would say are top shelf as far as having all the, you know, the good, solid, hard evidence that you can point at and say, look, people, look at this. Is this the way you want to live your life? Or is this right? Or why are you not upset about this? What would those subjects be? I mean, we've got a full smorgasbord to choose from here.
Well, you have to deal with people, and for the most part, they are protecting their comfort zone. And their comfort zone is, this is the freest country in the world, right? Well, that's not true. History would teach them that, but of course education, public education has failed them miserably, and I should say all education has, because those that can afford private schools and boarding schools, they are the most mistaught of all. They are taught the values of a monster, because from their ranks are going to be pulled the future monster leaders, like the Clintons, like the Obamas. They're tailored. They're told when they're still in their teens, they're going to be president of the United States, that they have this laid out. And they're selected because of character flaws that are found in them, and they're developed. Monsters are tailored. If you don't believe me, read history about how the absolute kings and queens were tailored to be the monsters they were.
So back to my question again, are there any of these subjects that have probably the best evidence that is something that, you know, would really carry weight with somebody?
Yeah, I think that just history lessons would do that more than anything else. What was NAFTA? What was GATT? You're looking at the situation now. People have to appreciate cause and effect. Once that they do, and you show that this effect that they're going through now, the job market, the inability of the government to cope with the problems that we used to succeed in, were very good at. I mean, we were an industrialized nation no more. We were an education standard no more. We had a job market. We didn't have the excess surplus job market that we have today. We have failed in every field that affects standard of living. We're at the bottom of the farmer industrial nations in almost every respect. So once that you show people that this is a product that these think tanks that plan out these prospectus for the elite, this is what they call gradualism. And once you show people exactly what's going on, how everything, every major thing from Greenpeace to the way in which the agencies of the government that are responsible for consumer health have failed to meet their mandates by executive policy. And the emergency acts that are in place that allow detainment without charge of any American indefinitely, and that the police are becoming more brutal.
Right. So, you know, I suppose we can all agree, well, we've got some pretty sick people that are pulling, the corporate strings on the planet. And I guess, what our job, one thing that we can do is try to anticipate what they're going with some of these games and some of the cards that they're. When we do look back at history, like James was saying, we can start seeing patterns on how these things play out, and you can kind of anticipate their next moves. And I think one thing that gives some of the things that we talk about here in the alternative community and the types of things that you guys are speaking about out on the stage is that ability to kind of forecast what you're anticipating that is going to come out of these certain events. And if I'm off track, actually, any one of you step up. Do you think I'm kind of on the mark with the statement I just made there?
Well, a lot of it has to do with perception, of course, and I think one of the reasons it's so important to out these cretins for what they are to our fellow man is it's a very, very valuable lesson on the kind of world that apathy creates. And then at that moment, at some point, and hopefully not with unbearable suffering, at some point there should come a moment where a human being realizes this got where it is because of me. I'm the one who didn't do anything. I'm the one who didn't say anything. I could have done something and I didn't. And so now you have an established pattern instantly, don't you? If I know that something is wrong and I have the power to do something about it and I don't do it, this is what happens. And if we all do that, this is what happens collectively. This is where we are. So at the moment, we live in a giant reality show that's actually scripted, and people don't know that. It's not real. People think it's real. What people think is real is not real. None of it. Their conception of the solar system, their conception of the human body, their conception of weather, their conception of each other, none of it's real. It's all been implanted by people who need us to believe and behave in a certain way so that they can maintain their power base. And years ago, in the first radio show I did with Mel Fabregas, he asked me, he said, what's the end game? And I said, death. Just death. That's where it goes. The insanity just snowballs to the point that life cannot continue to exist in the middle of the madness. And earlier today, for listeners, I did a show earlier this morning with Tom and Ramon for 2 hours. That's pre-recorded. That will be released tomorrow. And during that show, Ramon was talking about how when you're kind of crammed together, how that makes it easier to believe that we're overpopulated. And there's a lot to that. Psychologically, they know what agitates a person. And they know that people are easier to move in a certain direction when they're agitated. And because our behavior is managed, they know that if they push this button, our right arm goes up. I mean, that's how much they've got it down.
So that may have something to do with why we have an open border on the southern.
Yes, we talked about that this morning too, but I do want to make this point before we switch gears. We have been socially managed not to care about our fellow man because the people in charge don't care, and they're convinced that if they just push the right buttons, we won't care either, and that we're really not any better than they are. And it's so bad that there's a series that just started on Netflix called Hysteria. There's only the pilot that's out so far, and I really hope that's only as far as it goes, because in this series, they're trying to project empathy for another human being as a defect, and not just a defect, but it's a deadly psychological mind virus. That, well, if you empathize with this person, it's contagious. You're gonna get what they got. Well, if you see that, you see what a mind job that is. We get what they got if we don't prevent what happened to them from happening to other people, including ourselves. We don't care about people anymore, and this is a big, big problem, and I think this probably has a lot to do with why James says a lot of people aren't going to get it until they go 2 days without food because they aren't suffering right now. They aren't suffering. So it's somebody else's problem. I mean, here in America especially, this ideology has been fostered relentlessly that, that's happening somewhere else. That's the people in Africa's problem. We don't have that problem here. It's somewhere else. That always happens to somewhere else. It's going to start happening here, and in fact is happening here. What we cause or allow to be done to another human being, we have ultimately done to ourselves. And when you look at the police state we have here, and you look at what's going on in Gaza, everybody here said, well, that's going on in Gaza. Oh, those poor people. I hope somebody figures it out over there. That's just over there. We're not going to worry about that. But 9/11 was caused by Israel. The bombings, the train bombings in London were caused by Israel. The Israeli infiltrators in our government are trying to take our guns. We're giving them billions of dollars every day, but won't turn the water on for the people in Detroit who can't afford to pay their water bill. And the militarization of our police, they're being trained by the Israelis. And then they come here and they treat us like we're Palestinians living in the Gaza ghetto, and people can't make the connection because, like we were talking about earlier today, propaganda, I don't remember who said it. I'm really bad about that kind of thing, and I apologize, but propaganda is designed to teach one group of people that another group of people are less important and don't matter. And it worked. This happened down at the border. Everybody thought, oh, yeah, it's a race issue. There are a lot of people who it really is a race issue for. It really is, because they just don't get it. It's not about Mexicans coming to this country. It has nothing to do with that. It was the way to psychologically program and socially manage the perceptions of the people in this country to begin accepting and expecting terrorist attacks on our own soil. Is it going to be your mall? Will you care if it's your kid who dies when the mall blows up, or it's their school, or it's a casino and it's your parents? What bothers me is that people will let it go that far, that they will wait until it's their own family suffering, and it bothers me greatly, not just because it's selfish, and not just because it's not natural, that their natural instincts to care about another human being have been overridden, but because by the time it gets that far, it's almost too late.
Right.
One of the things that I'd like to add to this, and you see it in the alternative media over and over and over again, is confusion of issue. It's a form of mind control. And no one is guiltier of it than the alternative media.
Please expand on that, confusion of issue. I'm pretty sure I understand what you're talking about, but...
Well, blame shifting is a big part of it.
Yeah. And another thing is you have people that have the solution on their horizon, like Fulford and Wilcock. They have the solution. So don't do anything. Just wait for us. We're going to take care of it economically. You're not going to solve the problems with currency. You're not going to solve the problems with gold. You're not going to solve the problems with the magic bullet. You're only going to solve the problems by standing up to the monsters and saying, no more.
That's true. To answer your earlier question, Tom, when you were asking, are there are a couple of really important issues to focus on, and personally, I think the only thing that will save the human race is the end of corruption.
Absolutely.
If
You're absolutely
there was
correct.
one way you had to define it, that's it. You have to get rid of it. We have to get rid of it. I have to get rid of it. You have to get rid of it. We have to. If you don't want your children learning Common Core, then join the PTA and demand that they stop. If you don't want the UN Agenda 21 garbage being pushed in your city, then go to the meetings. Rosa Koire, the UN Agenda 21 lady, she's totally awesome. Her last name is Koire. Lots of videos of her on YouTube. She gives you their MO. She teaches you how their NLP works. She teaches you how their opinion forming works, so that you can get around it and that you can stand up for yourself and that you can manage yourself. You can actually start managing them, which is how it should be, because these are your communities. These are my communities. They are our communities. This planet does not belong to the rich, bumbling idiots that can't find their way out of a paper bag. They're killing the planet we all live on because they're corrupt. And I don't mean corrupt just in the sense of greasing some palms to make get a law or a deal passed. I'm talking about corrupt psychically, corrupt psychologically, mentally. They're debased. They're not all there. And this was another thing we talked about earlier this morning, is that good people, good, decent people, which I think most people are, can't really fathom this because they don't think like this. They just don't think like this. They're not attracted to power because they are not like these other people. So when you have positions of power, and what's a position of power? If we define it, it's power over others. In some respect, that's what it is. This is like honey for bees for these people. So of course they gravitate to these positions, which is why we ultimately had to put laws in place to keep that from happening. But then we all checked out and looked the other way.
Right.
So we can't do that anymore.
We recently had Vinnie Eastwood out, the current Prime Minister in New Zealand. And he laid out his background and showed his white-collar crime that wouldn't quit, and how he networked with other white-collar criminals to be what he is today. And all of a sudden, Vinnie Eastwood has all of his videos, and he had quite a few, on YouTube removed.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And he's been going for something like 7 years, so that's a lot of material.
Right.
And he needs our support. You know, everyone who is authentic in the alternative media should be up in arms about this, because he tells the truth, he gives sources, he takes a stand, and he has left an audio of 6 minutes in which he goes through it from beginning to end. And this creature is up for re-election. So he's got the powers that be behind him, of course, because they're very sensitive about something happening in New Zealand, like what happened in Iceland. So they're very sensitive about this issue and getting their boy back in power. And this was a perfect opportunity to out him, and Vinnie Eastwood did an excellent, superb job of it. His 6 minutes is a rendition that amazes me because he doesn't lose a step. I want even more respect for Vinnie. I've been on his show. I want even more respect from him listening to that. And, of course, he deserves everyone's support. Everyone that's concerned about what's going on to them in the country needs to get behind Vinnie and force the issue with YouTube to put his videos back up.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that myself.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to what James said a moment ago, that we have to protect the valiant, especially if we aren't willing to be one of them. The least we can do is protect the people that do it for us. And basically what James just said is that this 6-minute video that Vinnie Eastwood put out, this information about the Prime Minister, is what this is what got him banned from YouTube, because he's exposing a cretin to his fellow man, and they don't like it. But without people understanding who's in charge and where their mindset is, nothing will change. That's how bad these people don't want us to tell the truth. That's what got him in trouble.
Right.
Yes, and our leaders, the people that are outspoken, that have come to the forefront, that have devoted their lives, like Kevin Blanche, these are people we get behind and protect. But we're not worth saving, are we?
Yeah, well, I see us all on a different level, but yeah, I think we're all worth protecting, for sure. Well, that's just their track record. The same sort of thing has happened to so many different people. You know, just Ramon and I, with our little show, you know, we get out there and sometimes we'll have, you know, pretty cutting edge information on. And it just seems like during those types of shows that are sensitive to certain groups, we have nothing but issues through the whole show, just trying to stay connected. We've actually heard stuff in the background, you know, it's like definitely other groups listening in, you know, that wiretapping or whatever you want to call it. So I know that they definitely keeping their eye on the alternative media, because the alternative media, there's a whole bunch of us out here that are not afraid to say what they're seeing. And that's dangerous to them. And, you know, what's it take for us to get a louder voice, I suppose, is a good question.
Courage to actually say the truth. And I've said the truth about operations here where I live, that they're very sensitive, and I've been outspoken about them. I've named names, who the front for Air America right here in Fort Worth is, and repeatedly. You have to have that kind of courage. You have to be able to stand up, name names, and not worry about the consequences. And I'm still here, aren't I?
Right, right. What's your guys' opinion of what's going on over there in Gaza right now? I mean, it's just ridiculous, the kind of thing. You know, we did mention talked a little bit about it this morning with Crystal, you know, the whole crisis actor thing and the staging of just for the mass media and the big psyops. So, you know, in light of all of this and in light of what's going on over there right now, at least what we're told is going on over there right now, I'm just curious on what the next card that's going to be thrown is going to be.
They want to kill those people. They want to commit genocide on all the Palestinians, and they are. They're using this fraudulent Hamas ruse to do it. I have seen a video where when the time before this last assault on Gaza, these people that are firing rockets into Israel, which are toy rockets, by the way, without warheads, can't do any damage, they're not going to go boom, are waving at Israeli soldiers who are waving back at them.
It's a testament to the sickness that's running rampant in the world right now, unchecked. And you and I, everybody listening to this, are the checks and balance. And we've been on vacation. We can't do that anymore. There was an article just a couple of days ago. I think it was I can't remember. It was 8 or 9 family lines have been completely wiped out. They're gone, erased from humanity. And these people won't stop until they're all gone. And it's not just the Palestinians. It's anybody who isn't them. You see, it's us. It's you. It's Ramon. It's Mhairead. It's James. It's our children. It's our friends. It's our teachers. It's our neighbors. We're all next. These people will not stop.
You know, a while back I saw a video, and it was this, he looked pretty young, like maybe late teens to early 20s, I would say, like probably 18 or 19, and he was like an American Jew, and he was in Israel, and he was speaking publicly in Israel on the street, and was getting recorded on what's going on in Palestine and how he's completely against that. And the cops came and they looked at his passport and they just with brute force just took him down when it wasn't needed at all. And just picked him up, cuffed him. And all he was saying is that you're committing genocide. He wasn't being loud. He wasn't being rude.
Well, this is discernment that's very important to make. The difference between Jews that follow the Torah and Jews that follow the Talmud. In Israel, the Zionists promote the Talmud over the Torah. And Orthodox Jews are firmly against Zionists. They don't believe that Jews should have homeland, and they've stated this on many occasions. There are a lot of good people that are Jewish in this country, in America, but they are intimidated by the Zionists. They are taught that if they speak out against Israel, that they are betraying their own heritage, their own ethnicity. They are taught that if they don't make a pilgrimage to Israel and bring their tourist dollars, that they haven't performed their deed, that they owe their belief, their ethnicity. This play has been going on ever since the turn of the century. And it began basically whenever a certain segment of Ashkenazi Jews, who were in control of international banking even then, decided that they needed an independent country in order to house all the wealth that they had, so it couldn't be confiscated when their misdeeds are found out. And I'm talking more than any other family about the Rothschilds.
Right.
Now, James should explain what an Ashkenazi Jew is, but he did this the other day. Well, it was a little bit longer than that, a week or so ago. He said, go to Wikipedia, and I encourage people to do this right now, because after we've said it publicly, I'm sure it'll change.
It won't be on there very long.
Go to Wikipedia and type in Rothschilds, and so I did, and then you get their family crest and all this, on the right-hand side, and then right underneath it says Ashkenazi Jews. It says that. So I think James should clarify for people what an Ashkenazi Jew is, because it's not really a Jew.
No. An Ashkenazi Jew is a Jew that decided to become a Jew when the Catholic Church decided that it was a heretical sin to loan money. And they saw an opportunity to be part of a monopoly. And an Ashkenazi Jew is a Gentile that converts so he can loan money. In other words, be a banker.
I mean, can you fathom that dialogue with a bunch of people sitting around and going, oh my God, if we're Catholics, we can't lend money? And then they all look at each other and they go, we're Jewish now, aren't we? Yeah.
It's still there on Wikipedia.
Yeah. That's why they came up with the law. I remember the Catholic Church, I think it was like 500 years ago, they came up with the law that you cannot convert, because I guess so many people were converting for that reason.
Yeah, but it had already been done. And, of course, there was no proving it. These people create a false lineage. You know, the Hebrew nation's history began with Akhenaten. Abraham is a fiction. They know that. You know, anyone that's a 33rd degree Mason or higher knows this. They all know it. When you get to be a 33rd degree Mason, you get in touch with real history. And, of course, you've proven yourself to be manageable, or you wouldn't get there.
Right. You're a team player.
You're a team player.
Right.
And that's exactly what they refer to themselves as. Team players, you know. Can't get away from the sport metaphor.
So, you know, in light of everything that we're starting to learn about the way these cartels are set up and the family heritages that are within them and the lineages, et cetera, it's starting to make a little bit more sense on why Israel happens to be everybody's, you know, pet project. It seems like every country on the damn planet, it seems it's, you know, saying anything bad about Israel is taboo.
Well, one of the worst mechanisms of all is that government of the United States gives Israel billions of dollars in aid every year, and that money is coming back through AIPAC to corrupt our legislators.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, a black lady and a congresswoman, Cynthia McKinney, recently came out and said the one reason that I have no money for campaigns is that I won't take this pledge to support Israel no matter what. But as I was saying about the corruption that we have in government is financed by AIPAC, who demands that using their leverage, the money that we send Israel, billions of dollars in aid every year, coming back through AIPAC and corrupting Congress.
Right.
And Cynthia McKinney, a very prominent black legislator in Congress, has recently stated that she doesn't have any campaign money because she won't take a pledge to support Israel, right or wrong. And she says that senators and Congress people have to take that pledge to get money from AIPAC.
Right.
And, of course...
I still can't hear you guys. I'm really sorry. I'm not even hearing the sound of Skype ringing when you call me. So I've rebooted my computer. I think my headphones might be toast. I had a problem yesterday with James and Mhairead. So I don't want to take up any more time in the show because I think there's only a half an hour or so left. So I'm just going to say goodnight if you can hear me, which I think you can because I don't see anybody's boxes blinking. So it's always an honor and a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to sign off, and I'm sure that Mhairead and James can take good care of you guys for the rest of the show. So thank you again. It was wonderful to catch up, and you guys have a great night.
All right. Well, thank you, Crystal Clark. Yeah.
So we got a request, actually, from Facebook. And that was Susan said, talk about the cities of the sea.
Well, we've been very pragmatic up until now, but we're talking about something that goes beyond Earth. Since the late 50s, the United States has been dumping plutonium waste in the Atlantic Trough. And Israel pirated a number of freighters that were on the way to do that, to high grade. This is the thing about any kind of nuclear waste. It can be high graded much cheaper than the ore can be concentrated and then worked back into either fuel grade or weapons grade uranium or plutonium. So they were pirating these freighters that were taking this waste to the Atlantic Trough and take it to Israel, high grade it, and that's how they built their first nuclear program. And one of the reasons for the attack on the USS Liberty by Israel was because that was doing a fact-finding mission for the NSA. It was a U.S. Navy vessel, and it was attacked by Israel, and a number of men were killed. And they meant to sink it with all hands on board, but a warship showed up from a neutral nation and stopped it, or all those men's lives would have been lost. So this is an important adage. But because the nuclear industry was contaminating the ocean back then, a series of organisms were created that worked as a colony that could ingest even plutonium waste and render it harmless. And this became the cities of the sea. At night, these wonders, these magnificent colonies of organisms glow. They're beautiful. There's something to see, and there was a documentary that was made of deep sea exploration that got to the edge of one of these and then of course, cut away very quickly because they know they're there. The monsters know they're there. They're in the Pacific Ocean, and they're also in the Atlantic, and they're keeping your planet alive. Because this is where most of your oxygen is produced, that in the Amazon basin, and of course the Amazon basin is being deforested. So this puts more and more importance on the Atlantic Trough, the Great Barrier Reef, and did at one time on the Pacific. And the Pacific is going to throw its bottom one of these days very soon. But the cities of the sea have left the Pacific, and there are a number of pilots that have witnessed the glowing at night. It's a magnificent sight to see, but they see a shaft of light shoot down, and they see a whole panorama of light down just above the ocean. They're flying over it, of course, and you can go online and see this for yourself.
Yeah, I'll post a video because someone tagged me on that, and I was just amazed.
These are cities of the sea and the Pacific leaving. That is another stopgap measure you're losing, and you're going to lose more. Your planet is on the verge.
And the cities of the sea, these are, we're saying, our extraterrestrial assistance had been offered?
And given.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
You have several operations that are holding your planet together. Right. Because fracking, the removal of oil, a number of other things, subterranean nuclear detonations in search for oil, primarily, and other things that you haven't been told about have made the crust unstable. And without this help, your civilization would have been destroyed by now.
Right.
Yeah. I have to ask about the huge base that's off the coast of... Where in California? Do you remember them?
It's off the coast of Malibu.
Yeah. Malibu. That's it.
Yeah. What do you want to know about it?
Is that one of the United States base, or is that ET base?
It's ET.
Yeah. And do you think that they're there to kind of help clean the Pacific since it's dead or dying?
No. They're stabilizing the San Andreas Fault Zone.
Okay.
Well,
that's a perfect place for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that'd be the right spot for it, too, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, you know this first because you asked the question.
Right.
A very good question, very significant question to ask, Ramon.
Yeah, well, I kind of tied it together once Susan asked about the cities of the sea, and you gave your explanation. I was like, okay, that makes sense. What is that doing there?
I congratulate you for your open-mindedness.
Thank you. There'll be a $250. No, I'm just kidding.
I would gladly pay it.
It seems that even here and all over the world in major places, you consistently either see strange lights or what is called UFOs around it. It sounds like they have their work cut out for them trying to maintain things. And why would they bother? Because it's, like, how can you help someone who's not helping themselves?
That is the reality. Of course, there's a point at which they can't do anything else. They can't do any more. ETs have met with your world leaders and offered to get rid of the EBs, which are problematic, as a first step in negotiating a way to help you out of this mess. But your leaders wanted the technology that EP would give, and it hasn't done you any good. There is literally no corporation with that, and now you've come to a point where only that can save your planet. ET must be assured that you will stop these trends and that you will put people in places of power and authority. I shouldn't say power, but authority, that are advised of human values, that are advised of human decency and wisdom. And, of course, your leaders today have no wisdom. None.
Right.
That's obvious.
That's right. Of course, it is obvious to you gentlemen because you have the intelligence, the awareness, and the knowledge to know. But we have failed miserably in imparting that to our fellow men. They are not dumb. They are dumbed down. But that doesn't mean it's irretrievable by any means. And like I say, when it's brought home to them. And unfortunately, that may take some doing, may take some suffering. And of course, our position, anyone who is aware has a duty. And our position should be to alleviate as much suffering as we can, no matter what happens. And of course, if you're taken by surprise, the harm is much greater. So if you're aware, then you have the time to do what you can do to prevent what may become inevitable. But nonetheless, at least you know how to blame. If you do strike out, you don't strike out at the innocent.
Yeah. Here's another question, and it's an out there question. There's so many different planets where there's life on. Is there somewhere where there's an example where something like this, which I'm sure there is happening on their planet, like it's happening on ours, and where it either they turned it around or B, they completely failed miserably?
The success record is very high, but you are unique. You have a split consciousness. One of the reasons that you've been given 7 extinctions is because the idea, the concept of split consciousness is so creative and intense that it's of interest to the universe. And to see you survive, to see the split consciousness be civilized is a great expectation and hope. So, but this will be the last extinction for you, if it happens. Hopefully, and I say this with assurance, it can be turned around, but it's going to take valiant efforts. It's going to take people that find the direction and stick with it. And, of course, you need moral outrage. That'll give you the energy you need.
Yeah.
You can do it.
I know Crystal Clark disagrees with this, but, from my own life experience and Tom's as well, we didn't, start looking at other things until we got smacked square in the bridge of the nose, with a giant 2x4 made of metal. So I'm wondering if humanity, that's what they need is constant whacks up against, the nose in order to be able to wake up and, smell the coffee.
I think it's going on. I think this move to take the guns from Americans that have ingrained in their national persona, the right to bear arms. You know, on one hand, you have a government legislating more constricting, more confining, and more police state laws. On the other hand, you have people noticing and becoming aware of the need to protect what they have from a violent element that's out there and is growing. And so Americans are not going to give up their guns. And that's going to be the stopgap that the monsters can't overcome. They're not going to give up. They're going to keep trying. They're going to criminalize owning a gun. And that's when it's going to hit the fan. And, of course, that and the fact that people are finding out the insane extent that the monsters have indulged pedophilia, Satanism, and other bizarre activity, and their secret technology, what it's actually done. Now, culturally, it wasn't stopped. It has gone into areas that when people realize it, they are going to be disgusted to the extent of outrage. And today, it is still a matter of science fiction to them, or futurism or whatever, but I assure you that you can't overstate the harsh reality of what these monsters have created on Earth. We see the tip of the iceberg here, but only the tip. What's below the surface? But like I say, it is not a lost cause. It is not a lost cause because on one hand, the split consciousness is problematic. On the other, it's capable of great valiance, of great intensity, and great focus. And the monsters know that. That's why they have spent so much of the world's asset to perfect mind control, to perfect war. And now they are spending over $1 trillion on a damn warplane.
Right.
Something that is the most unnecessary thing on Earth.
James, I have to ask you, I just saw a post put up actually by Nassim Haroun, an asteroid called Pitbull. They're supposed to be passed by close to Earth at 7 p.m. Pacific time, closer than the moon, and wanted to ask you about that. I know it's off topic, but what is it exactly, or have you heard of it?
Yeah, I have. It's like a warning. It's under intelligence control.
That's what I thought. That's why I said, let me ask him about that.
Yeah.
So it's a warning about the seventh extinction kind of thing? Like, you think it can't happen to you here, it can?
Well, hopefully it would be an indication of that there is providence and that there is design. And when you see a series of CMEs that knock out a portion of the military satellite array, that's not entirely a bad thing, you know. It doesn't harm anyone on Earth, but knocks out these obtrusive and intrusive instruments of control. You know, every time that these creatures think they're getting it together, like with their weaponizing of space or whatever, something disastrous happens. You know, this is a sign. There are people who are keepers of thousands of years of prophecies and predictions that know what I'm talking about. And this will fit into that category. Much the same way Hellbop did. Remember that Lucifer, the observatory that was built by the Jesuits in Arizona, it was to monitor Hellbop, because Hellbop was part of a prophecy. And Hellbop had a double nucleation, which is interesting, and it came through twice.
Miriam, you're Miriam, sorry. Just killing your name out. Mari, you're kind of quiet there.
I'm listening to good questions. Is this asteroid, has it got a specific job that it's going to do then, James?
It is some of the collection of the material in an asteroid belt that is being put together to become another body, another planet. Once that's done, there will be no more meteor showers that are threatening or asteroids coming through. They all come from the asteroid belt, and these are the composition of a planet that was destroyed about 350,000 years ago. So if that belt is collected and put together as something else that can be stable, then that's one less problem for your solar system. Mm. But if you look on the moon, you'll see that the moon has been hit many times, and that should show you that Earth has been protected. And your moon was part of that protection.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's not a whole lot that gets past Jupiter in the first place.
No, that's true. And everything that does has certain features, like it changes course. Shoemaker-Levy is the best example of all.
Yeah.
And you had these supposed fragments of a comet coming through in a straight line like a train, all hitting Jupiter. And, of course, the first program, the first documentary on this showed all these fragments, supposedly fragments, all hitting in the same spot on Jupiter in the eye of a storm that was the size of Earth. And after that documentary, however, the powers that be thought that was a little bit too defining, so they had it hit in different spots on Jupiter. That doesn't make any difference. It all hit the same target. So, hence, if you have anything fragment in space, its fragments are going to go out in different directions, just like they would on Earth, even more so, because there's no wind resistance.
Right.
But these things come in directly, one after another. That should tell anybody, and of course this is never broached, but it should have told everybody they're under intelligent guidance. And of course, what were they doing? What were they? Why did they hit Jupiter? Jupiter is being terraformed.
Is it like the movie, what was it called? Odyssey 2010, where they terraformed it into a sun? Is that what they're doing, or a planet?
I think that Arthur C. Clarke was prescient.
I don't understand that. Prescient?
2001 Space Odyssey.
Beginning with that, there are things going on in the solar system that have been there in front of us all along to indicate a community at work that Crystal and I talk about design, what the EMVs in the sun. And there was a massive CME that was heading from Mercury, and one wrapped itself around Mercury, and there's a NASA video of this to protect it from the CME.
James, I hate to cut you off, but we got 1 minute left here. And, let Mhairead end it. Okay, Mhairead, what do you want to see happen with all the work that the three of you are doing together?
Oh, just come to James's blog, learn more. There's much more information there than what we've covered tonight, and it's been great. Thank you for having me on, and really appreciated it. We'll come back if you want us.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Well, we got...
remember you said that.
Drowninginabsurdity.com and
emvsinfo.blogspot.com.
And we'll have those links on the webpage. Yes. Condemnation without investigation is the heights of ignorance.
The love you deny is the sin you carry.
Namaste, my friend.